This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, it's been another busy week around the PR garage here. For those of you who follow me on social media, you may have seen my home office space that I've been working in for the past year or so. I set up in our suburban garage back in March of 2020, and it's where I also tape the podcast every week. So lots of action going on, and I especially love the days in this garage when the sun is shining and I can open the door. Today is one of those days here. Feels like I'm working outside all day, and I'm really looking forward to spring. The sun is also shining on our podcast, and we want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing. Our audience continues to grow week after week. We are all on the popular podcast platforms, so pick your favorite: Apple, Spotify, Google, etc. Give us a subscribe there. Please also check us out on our social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We also just launched our YouTube channel, so search for us at the PR Podcast there. Right now, we've just uploaded all the shows to there. We're also going to work on developing some original video content to go along with it because, of course, YouTube all about video. So we're going to put some new stuff up there as well very soon. Speaking of social media and original content and interesting things to talk about, we have a bona fide original guest this week. So let's get right to it. Sarah Evans is founder and CEO of Sevans Strategy, an industry trendsetter in harnessing the power of digital to connect brands with their target audience. She has worked with a variety of well-known brands and influencers, and she's even one herself, being very influential in the thought leadership of public relations and digital communications. She also has what I think is the best eyeglasses collection in the business. Sarah, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Jody, that was the best intro ever. I'm so glad it was a surprise because the fact you acknowledged my glasses game makes me really happy.
I love them. And anybody who has not actually seen Sarah, a photo of Sarah or a headshot or whatever, you got to check her out because your glasses are awesome.
Thank you. I started using them as part of kind of my online brand years and years ago when a branding person said, what's going to set you apart? As I was kind of building up an online presence, I said, well, I can't see very well. So how about I just make the glasses bigger? And it was born.
Those glasses are the best. And I can only aspire. I have to wear glasses to watch TV, and see detail at a distance. But I can only hope to have as cool a collection as you have one day. Well, tell us about, enough about the glasses, right? And about my failing eyesight. Tell us about your work and about Sevans PR.
Well, Sevans PR and Sevans Strategy was really born a little over 11 years ago. My background is all corporate comms and PR, and I shared with you offline that I started in the corporate world, but mostly nonprofit and healthcare, education. I moved my way up quite early on in my career to a director level, but no one in my full-time employment wanted to pursue digital media. So I was kind of the lone wolf pursuing that. I started talking about it in my free time online with a blog that no longer exists and on my Twitter account. Through that, people started reaching out. And over the years, I worked myself out of that safe, steady job and really started to build up a niche area of digital PR in mainly the tech realm. So we wouldn't work with a beauty brand per se, but if they had some sort of tech touch, we would do that. We do tons of funding announcements for startups, whether that's pre-seed, seed, series A and beyond, and love what I do every day.
That is the best. And now, have you been working remotely this last year?
I officially left my office, moved out of it, I should say, 2.5 weeks ago. I hadn't been there since March 16th of last year when I had to move home. I have 2 young children, so we've got the distance learning, working from home conundrum.
Oh man, you and me together. Yeah, we are pulling triple duty here at home. You have, how has that been, by the way? I mean, working remotely, we all kind of in the communications industry kind of work remotely all the time, whether it's from our phones wherever we are, or remotely from some other location, or we have to be on the road with a client or something like that. How has that adjustment been?
So I will say, since I haven't had to travel at all, that's kind of been the silver lining of all of this. Mom has been able to be here. But I also have my, work hat on at all times. The downside is that the thing I've struggled with the most is that I don't have segmentation to my day anymore. When I leave the office, I can put back on, mom zone, mom hat, and come home and move into that mode. And now everything's just in the same place. So I've had to personally grow in that area to find some sort of shut off, turn on, whatever that might be. And those are more personal things. Professionally, things are amazing. I love having a fully remote team. I've always functioned that way somewhat with my clients, so that didn't change at all.
Yeah, I actually have an alarm on my phone every day that goes off at 5:30 just to remind me that, okay, you're supposed to be winding down now. Because it's easy just to be here because you're home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just to keep working. I mean, there in the very beginning of all this lockdown, I found myself working like almost right through dinner in a way, which
It
was
got
just
pretty bad.
not good for the family vibe.
No, that is for sure.
Yeah. So you've worked with a lot of brands. You gave us a little bit of rundown about what you do with Sevans Strategy. You are an expert in the digital space, especially. And I wanted to ask you and have a conversation with you about digital and about how brands manage their digital presence, whether that means social, whether that means their website or their blog or whatever, but anything that has to do with that. How do you think that brands can best manage that digital presence that they have?
Well, I come at it from a few different vantage points. And number one, I can talk to you just from give you primarily what we do with a lot of our clients in the tech space. It's really looking at if you can't get a traditional media pickup, or maybe you do in those tier one or trade pubs, how also can you help to tell this story? If you work in the tech space, you're likely familiar with a large community called Product Hunt or Reddit, places where people are having online conversations and talking. We look for additional ways to have story amplification, and that's big fancy buzzwords, but really just connecting with niche audiences around your topic where they're already engaging. So we might come up with unique campaigns or ways to distribute the story, or maybe members of that client's team are already active there. How can we engage them? It might include, for a launch day, for example, a social editorial calendar, or unique ways to leverage things. If you have a new tech that would really benefit your local community, partnering with or utilizing Nextdoor, an app, a local community app that's already very popular. So we look for unique ways to tell that story in addition to the media side of things.
Wow, you just threw a ton of terrific information at us
Oh,
there,
good.
and it reminds me in a dumbed down way, because that's just what I do, of what I repeatedly say to my clients is that you don't need to be everywhere. You need to be where your audience is. So if your audience expects you to find you in a certain place, you need to make sure that you own that place. Now sometimes that's based on geography, media outlets in a certain geographic range. Maybe it's in a subject matter range, or maybe it's what you talked about, certain digital platforms. I'm familiar with. I get notifications off of Nextdoor all the time, and I'm amazed how seemingly under leveraged that platform is. You get a lot of like dog lost and stuff like that, but
Sure.
it seems to me like that would be a phenomenal platform to be advertising businesses on.
It really is. I mean, I will say I did reunite a lost dog there this past week. And there is a very fun Twitter account called Best of Nextdoor if you want some daily chuckles of some
Oh,
of the
that's great.
crazy things.
That's like text from last night, right?
Exactly. But there are great opportunities for local, especially for a local business, and you've got 10, 20 employees that also live there, and you're in various neighborhoods. You can look for opportunities without spamming them. If it's purely an educational message, that's something you could post organically, but you can also look at that from an advertorial point of view. And what else can you share there?
And that's a great call out too, about you mentioned spamming people, and sort of I always put myself in the receiver's shoes, right? What is the
Yeah.
person who's receiving my message? What are they thinking about what I have to say or my client has to say or what have you? And it really comes down to the story that you're telling, right? Do you work with your clients to kind of develop a storyline, maybe not an elaborate one, but a storyline of when they're trying to pitch a service about how they deliver their message for their service or their product?
Always. That's just inherent in everything that I do. So when we're talking about a funding announcement, we're looking for something new and unique. And while I might pitch an exclusive somewhere, we might have other arms of that story, nuances, sound bites, and things that we're pitching other places so that we can continue. The objective or what the story is. Obviously, when you're pitching to media, they're going to tell it in the most unbiased way or get multiple viewpoints. But we want to offer different scenarios for that story, different opportunities for that story. And then on their owned or shared platforms, that's where they can kind of take some ownership over how they're telling something.
And that is a great point too. The synergy between the owned and the earned and the social, and sort of how they talk to each other and how they are both similar and different from each other. What's your perspective on that, as sort of how they interact?
Well, if we look at it as part of, let's say you are going to have a story. I'll use that example. So you've got a big announcement coming up. You've secured either an exclusive or maybe a few under embargo, whatever it is, something's launching under that earned category. And we know it's coming. We think about what are all the other things we can do with that. Going back to the tech landscape, let's say we're going to launch on Product Hunt the next day, which is a popular technology community where new products go to launch, big and small. We'll say we're going to use that article as one of the validating factors. Then we're going to have the CEO, once the reporter posts it, go and engage on their social channels, thank them for writing it. We're going to create some visual assets out of sound bites from that article, making sure we're tagging the news outlet and the reporter, maybe investors, other stakeholders that are important. We're going to include it in the next company newsletter. So we start to look at all of the communication vehicles that live under the earned, shared, and owned channels, and then what are the nuances for sharing on each of them. I hope that answered your question.
It absolutely does. And for people who don't work in our industry, you can hear everything that you just threw out, like 7 or 8 different communications vehicles that deal with the very same piece of information, right? You've got this story that is going to show up in an earned outlet. That's not the end of the game, right? There's so much more that you can do, and really there's so much more that you can control, where you can control your message. When you hand a story over to a reporter, you should have the confidence that they're going to write the type of story you want. But at the end of the day, you don't know the exact words in that story until it's published.
Exactly.
You can know the exact words in how you leverage that message on your owned and social platforms, your website, your blog, your everything else, right?
Yeah, some CEOs do get hypercritical of a news article once it comes out, and rightly so.
Really, that's never happened to me.
And in their defense, they're very accountable to that brand, to shareholders, to other, stakeholders, board members above them. So what we try to do is say, what's the positive part of this? What are some of the good, moments that come out of this? Because you don't want them to be scared of media. The media is also doing their job in telling a story. So can we pull out the best part? Can we rephrase some of this to, post it on our social channels? Because those might your social channels might be picked up in the search engines as well. So, along with that article, it might be a corporate tweet as well. So all of it impacts the brand.
You mentioned something there real quick about search engines and searchability. How important is it when you're creating these communications to be what I've heard referred to as writing for SEO? Is that important? It sounds to me like you could do it, but it kind of will negatively affect your overall message. Have you ever done that, and how do you manage it?
We do it with everything, and in fact, it's just so embedded into our process now. And have been doing it for so long, we still try to find a way. It's like machine plus human. So you look at what are the high ranking search terms, but where can we invoke humanity or emotion along with that, and make some, interesting parallels or comparisons. So that way you're finding a beautiful balance of that. I actually did a 45-minute training yesterday for some legislative communication folks in my home state. And it was focused exactly on that. How do you take a press release and use that, repurpose that headline for all different communication channels without it being stale and robotic.
It's also got to make your head spin a little bit, because I know that, and I'm a little out of my lane here, and that's why I'm going to rely on you for your expertise. But I know that those algorithms around SEO are always changing. Do you find that you have to continually adapt how you execute it based on that new guidance from the algorithms?
Yes, yes, and yes. And I have friends that are way smarter in this area than me, and I go to them regularly because they'll say, okay, well, now podcasts are getting oh, you know what? My son just came in the room. That's why I was pausing. You want to say hi, buddy? Snowball. Okay. So, you know, they might be picking up podcasts, or they'll say, well, now they're going to pick up podcast episodes individually. Videos are going to be referenced. The tweets are like, so we just have kind of a list of things that may impact search.
Wow, that is just your brain could explode and ooze out your ear with all the knowledge that you're dropping here. So one of the questions that I had, which we jumped ahead of, and now I think I'm going to answer it myself here, but I want you to come back with your answer. How important is it for a client to be active on social media? I'm guessing really important.
I think it's extremely important because when you think about distribution and amplification, what started happening when I built up my own company, like I don't think I'm any more important than anyone else. And the fact that I have a larger Twitter following, people would say, yeah, we want you to pitch it, but can you also talk about it? So people are always looking for ways to get extra amplification. I have clients that still will say, what, are you also going to share this or tweet this? And I partner with other marketing and SEO firms who also have CEOs or leaders who have larger followings. And we do share our clients' information. And part of it is because I only work with people I really, really like. So I also have the luxury of sharing that content. So if you work for an organization, you also have that as an owned area where you can, you know, dispel myths and rumors. You can amplify positive messages. There are so many opportunities.
Yeah, and how frequently should a CEO, right, or someone who leads a brand, who is the face of a brand, how frequently should they be posting? I mean, I've heard every day. I've heard, multiple times a day. You listen to a guy like Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's like every 60 seconds.
Yeah.
How frequently should you be posting, and what should you be posting?
I think it 100% depends on the brand, what you're saying and what you're sharing. In fact, when I was meeting with those comms folks from uh, the legislature, somebody said, well, our legislator likes to get on every day and wants to post about everything. And I said, well, maybe, Instagram isn't the best place to do that, but perhaps a weekly live stream or a daily live stream at a set time and space. Where constituents know they can go to them and this person will be talking every day at this particular time, but you're not flooding a stream, you're offering an opportunity for people to come in and listen. So I think you have to be strategic and think about, if you want to talk every 60 seconds, where do you do that? How do you do that? Is it in one place? Or is there something you can do to, centralize and streamline that?
And speaking of new platforms that are launching all the time, Clubhouse is the latest one. Some people may not have heard of Clubhouse. I think it's still relatively new. If I had a nickel for every time I got a message about either giving an invite to somebody or receiving an invite from somebody, maybe I'd be able to go on vacation for a week. But I know that, and the reason I bring it up is because I saw you post earlier today something about Clubhouse, and you're going to be doing a talk tonight. Tell me a little bit about your early impressions of Clubhouse. How is that evolving as the new social media platform, and do you see it as having power?
I'm very curious about Clubhouse. It actually reminds me of the early days of Twitter when I started using it, and my husband said, that's really weird that you're meeting people on this kind of text-based platform. And it ended up being, a huge part of my career. With Clubhouse, so many people have jumped on in a relatively short amount of time. It's now valued extremely high. They've hired an Android developer because it's iOS only right now. That I'm reconnecting with a lot of folks I haven't talked to in a long time. So from a relationship standpoint, we're actually on what is essentially a party line, talking around different themes, ideas, topics, and offering other people a chance to voice their opinion. It's like all of a sudden having your own radio talk show. I'm I'm interested to see what happens. I feel a bit of FOMO because I see people who are on it what seems like all the time, talking and listening and hosting. And I just don't feel like I have the time for it right now. And if I do, it's usually later in the evening and I'll dedicate an hour. But I don't necessarily have the bandwidth to be using it 3 to 4 hours. But I have seen people who are dedicating that much time, seeing real business results come out of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't have the time for it either. Even though I do fall prey to the FOMO every once in a while, and I am an old radio guy, so the spoken word immediately appeals to me. I'm interested, and I'll watch it too to see how it develops here. I do think it's a really intimate platform because you are actually talking with people, even though I was about to say only voice. We're so used to Zooming and seeing people on our screens now. But yeah, that is a massively interesting platform. Yeah, so maybe I'll bump into you around the Clubhouse,
I would love that.
as they say. So sort of summing up our discussion around digital strategy and what you're doing with clients, and maybe going back to that story you told about the legislature. Is it important to be on every platform, or should people be picking and choosing where they think they will contribute the most value?
I feel like I become a broken record when I always say it depends on the situation. People ask, where should I be live streaming? And instead of picking just a single location, if you're already interacting with people on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, I'd say use a more general tool like Switcher Studio or StreamYard, where you can multi live stream and broadcast to hit all of those places at once. If you haven't built up a network anywhere, start with one and look to see where you can get the most traction. YouTube is still, king of video, but you might get more reach using Instagram Live. So I'd say, check it out. I'm watching a lot of influencers right now who are posting the same videos on both TikTok and Instagram Reels, and their growth is exponential on TikTok. They're reaching those 100,000 marks a lot faster. Watching living case studies right now.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I'll admit I'm not a TikTok guy. I am not that cool, but but I do love the Twitters. And I'll confess a slight addiction to Instagram, because I love, and you know what I love about Instagram, and especially following people I know, I love seeing them post pictures of themselves. And I know there's this whole selfie backlash kind of culture where it's like, oh, you're posting pictures of yourself, but like if I haven't seen somebody in a long time, I want to see their face.
I post it. What are you going to do at the end of the day? We've got, as a mom, I barely get any pictures of myself. So if I want to share a selfie because I put some makeup on, I'm doing it.
There you go. I'm totally with you. All right. I promise to like yours if you like mine.
You got it.
All right. Well, this has been great. We're going to move into our rapid fire question segment of our podcast here. And this is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio, and we ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions. So these are meant to elicit just 1 or 2 word answers, Sarah, and maybe a laugh or two for sure. So with your indulgence, here we go. Rapid fire question number 1, your favorite news source.
Let's go with Morning Brew.
Nice. Favorite rapid fire question number 2, favorite social media platform. We may have answered that already.
Twitter.
Rapid fire question number 3, coffee or alcohol?
Tequila.
I don't think that was clear enough. Rapid fire question number 4, what's your favorite on the run food?
Ooh, Kind bars.
Oh, yes. Love those. I always have one in my backpack. Always. And rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
Ooh, I want to take care of puppies and babies.
Aren't you already doing that?
Yeah. So the same thing without having to work all day.
Well, I'm so glad we got a little cameo there from your son too. That was awesome. Sarah, this is there he is.
I'm gonna make muffins.
He wants to be a chef, so he's gonna be cooking.
I will be right over. Sarah, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us. Please let people know how they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at PR Sarah Evans with an H. It's kind of like my central online business card. You can find out all the rest of my contact info there, or direct message me.
Fantastic. We will definitely do that. Well, thank you again for spending the time with us. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show and connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and now on YouTube at the PR Podcast. Send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on the socials and online at jodyfisherpr.com. We will see you next time on the PR Podcast.